What's going on YouTube? It's your guy Darian, and here on this YouTube platform I am known as the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. On this channel I talk about looking good and smelling amazing. So how you can look your best and smell your best each and every day. So if that content sounds like it will be of interest to you, then I welcome you and invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the bell icon as well. That way you get notified every time I release new content on the channel. So on today's video, guys, I'm going to be talking about fragrances in the YouTube community that have been hyped over the past couple years. When I first entered into this YouTube community and started watching videos and things of that nature, it was around mid 2016, I think around that time frame. And since that time, there have been fragrances that have been hyped by users of fragrances in the YouTube community. And since that time, there's been a lot of fragrances that have received a lot of hype by a lot of people. Now, some of these fragrances, in my humble opinion, have been worth it, and there's been proof because they're still just as popular today as they were in 2016. While some of these fragrances have gone on and have maintained their popularity, some of the fragrances on this list today were not as lucky. They received a lot of hype, but it was for a very short time frame. As time wore on, the hype and the attention that these fragrances were receiving started to really dwindle off. And some of them, a lot of folks don't even talk about or mention anymore. So I have 10 fragrances on this list. Some fall into fragrances that were hyped and I think were worth the hype, and they sustained that level of interest. And some of them fall into the latter category. They were only hyped, and the attention and the hype was very short-lived. So if you want to know what fragrances made this list and hear which ones I feel like were hype worthy and which ones were not, you know the routine. Keep it locked right here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. Let's go ahead and jump right into this list. The first fragrance that I want to mention today came from the house of Ferragamo. Now, this fragrance received a lot of hype when I first got into the community around that 2016 time frame. And the fragrance I'm talking about is this one right here. Is called F Black. Now, this fragrance received a lot of popularity because for what it is and what it costs, it does smell really, really good. It's kind of this spicy, slightly sweet, kind of spicy fragrance from the house of Ferragamo. And of course, you guys may know by now, you can find this fragrance in most bargain bins for around that $19 price point. So the fragrance does smell good for what it is. And back during that time frame, this fragrance was receiving a lot of hype. But I would say this fragrance falls into the category that the hype was not warranted, because now hardly anybody mentions this fragrance anymore. You rarely see this fragrance on anybody's top 10 list. So to me, that's always a dead giveaway or an indicator that at least the hype that it received back in 2016 was not really warranted. This is one of the fragrances that was not able to sustain the popularity. So the first fragrance on this list, F Black by Ferragamo, was a fragrance that I feel like did not maintain its hype. All right, guys, the next fragrance up on this list comes from the house of Bentley, and this is Bentley Intense for Men. Bentley Intense for Men. Now, just about a year later, around that 2017 or so time frame, if I'm not mistaken, this fragrance popped onto the scene and people were ranting and raving about Bentley Intense for Men. A lot of folks ranted and raved about this fragrance for a lot of the same reasons that a lot of folks talked about F Black from Ferragamo. They could not believe how great this fragrance was for the price that you pay. You can get this size bottle of Bentley Intense for Men for around that $30 to $35 price point, and I still feel this is a steal of a deal. You got some leather in this, it's got rum, so it's boozy as well. And I think some vanilla may be in this as well. But man, this is just an amazing scent for the price. Now, if you look around, fast forward to today, you will still find this fragrance being talked about. This fragrance is making lists for people for their fall winter list still. This fragrance makes lists of fragrances that are inexpensive but worth the price. So I would say that the hype for this one was real and was able to sustain the hype that it received back in 2017 from the house of Bentley. This is Bentley Intense for Men. All right, guys, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Halston. That's right, Halston, and this one is called Halston Amber Man. This nice, kind of unique gold bottle. Around the year of 2017, this fragrance as well was getting a lot of hype. Now, if you're new to the fragrance community, and you came into this community around 2019, maybe 2020, you may not even have ever heard of this fragrance because this was one, unfortunately, that did not sustain the hype. Around the time frame again of 2017, this fragrance started to show up in bargain bins around the country, and a lot of folks started to really pick up on this scent. It's a nice kind of incensey, resinous fragrance, and it does smell of high quality for what you would pay for this fragrance as well, because this is another one that people were picking up in bargain bins for around that $14 to $19 price point. And while I do agree that it is an awesome fragrance for what you pay, it was just not able to sustain the popularity because, again, I haven't seen this fragrance on anybody's top 10 list of any kind over the past 2 years or so. So again, a dead giveaway that unfortunately Halston Amber Man was not able to sustain the success. So this one unfortunately will fall into the category of not being able to live up to the hype. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I move forward with this video, I do want to say by no means am I saying that these fragrances on this list that I say didn't live up to the hype are not good fragrances, because obviously I still have them in my collection and I do value them. But again, when you look at the hype and the popularity of these fragrances, I'm just saying that they're not talked about as much anymore, so they didn't live up to the hype. So if these are some of your favorite fragrances that fall into the not living up to the hype category, don't be offended by that. I'm not saying that they're bad fragrances. So just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Guys, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Prada, and this is Prada L'Homme. Prada L'Homme. Now, this fragrance was released in the year of 2016, and again, that's the time frame that I'm making reference to. So when this fragrance was released, it started to receive a lot of hype. Now, this fragrance is one of those fragrances that give you that nice iris note. There's a beautiful iris note in this fragrance with some nice amber, patchouli, and sandalwood on the dry down. So it's very smooth, very creamy iris fragrance. And this one has lived up to the hype. You can look on any spring list for these yearly top 10 spring lists, and you're still going to find this fragrance in most people's top 10 because it's that good. It's been deemed as one of the quintessential office appropriate fragrances to wear, and I could not agree more. It performs great, it smells fantastic. So this fragrance, I would definitely have to say, lived up to the hype. All right, guys, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Giorgio Armani, and this one is called Acqua Profumo. Acqua Profumo. Now, this fragrance right here received a lot of hype when it hit the shelves in late 2015. Since then, there's been other flankers of this fragrance, but to me, this is still the best one to be released. I always talk about this particular fact. They took the best-selling men's fragrance of all time, Acqua and threw some incense and patchouli into this and just made it a mass appealing fragrance that went from being a summer spring staple to a fragrance that you can wear year-round, that signature scent worthy. And although some of the hype on this fragrance has died down, you can still find this fragrance on a lot of different lists, from office fragrance lists to just some of your most versatile fragrances of all times type lists. This fragrance has definitely lived up to the hype that started to get a buzz around that end of 2015 going on into 2016 time frame. So Acqua Profumo is a fragrance that certainly lived up to the hype. All right, guys, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Perry Ellis, and this fragrance is called Black Vanilla Oud Absolute. Black Vanilla Oud Absolute. This fragrance was released in the year of 2015, but it wasn't until late 2016 that this fragrance really started to pick up a lot of steam, and this thing was being hyped all over the place. Another fragrance that fell into that $30 to $35 price point for this particular scent, and I'm telling you, during that time frame, the hype was real concerning this fragrance. A fragrance reviewer that doesn't do reviews as much as he used to, that goes by the name of Simply Put Sensa, talked about this fragrance on a video. The video started to get a lot of attention, and a lot of people started to really take notice to this fragrance. For what it is a very nice fragrance, and you rarely hear anybody talk about many fragrances from the house of Perry Ellis, but it was very high quality for, again, what you were paying for this scent. Again, ambery, vanilla, slightly boozy fragrance. So it was really good for the price that you were paying. But unfortunately, like some other fragrances on this list, not many people are really talking about this fragrance anymore. Again, not saying that it's not good and it's not worth the price, but it's just not a fragrance that gets a lot of attention anymore from what I'm able to see. So I would have to say, unfortunately, Perry Ellis Black Vanilla Absolute didn't live up to the hype. Now, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Montblanc, and this one is called Individuel. Individuel. This fragrance was hyped to death when I came into the fragrance community around mid-2016. And this one is tricky for me, man, because this fragrance is one of the fragrances that really got me into reviewing. I saw a few fragrance reviews on this fragrance and was very, very intrigued by it. And I got my hands on it. As you guys can see, my bottle is low. I don't wear it as much as I used to, but this is a fragrance that I love. Anybody that's been following me for any length of time knows that one of my favorite fragrances of all time is Creed's Original Santal, and quite naturally, of course, you know by now, this is very reminiscent to Original Santal, and this can be had for around that $20 to $25 price point. So did Individuel live up to the hype? Although it's not talked about quite as much as it used to, I would have to say that yes, it did. Because I do see and still hear people talk about this fragrance. I still do see people post about this fragrance on Instagram and things of that nature, and it still makes a few lists. So I would say if you're looking at from 2016 when this really started to pick up some hype up until now, this one is hanging on by a thread. But I will say that Individuel did live up to the hype. All right, guys, the next fragrance on this list needs no introduction. As a matter of fact, these last three need no introduction. And this one is called Dior Sauvage. Again, Dior Sauvage, we don't need to talk about this one too much because we know this one got a lot of hype and it still gets a lot of hype. This fragrance started the whole ambroxan craze in the fragrance world. And since then, they released two flankers of this one, which I have right now is the original. I have a little bit left in here. We're down to here. But guys, we know about this fragrance. We know what it is. We know what it does. So whether you're talking about Dior Sauvage EDT, EDP, or now the Profumo, this fragrance definitely lived up to the hype. It's still one of the most talked about and one of the most popular fragrances on the market. My wife bought me this same bottle for Christmas in 2015. And that got the creative juices flowing again. I've always loved fragrances, but this took my love to another level when I put my nose on this back in 2015. I really began collecting at that time. An amazing fragrance from the house of Christian Dior has definitely lived up to the hype. This one, of course, Christian Dior's Dior Sauvage. Like I said, the last three fragrances on this list need no introduction. This one comes from the house of Armani, and this is Club de Nuit Intense Man. Club de Nuit Intense Man. And this was around that 2016 time frame as well, maybe 2017. But of course, the Aventus clone. This was one of the first, in my opinion, Aventus clones that really put you in the mindset, in the ballpark of really what Aventus is. Now, of course, a lot of people have talked about this. It's kind of synthetic if you want to compare it to Creed Aventus, but man, it rolled in the compliments. And of course, you guys know, I don't have to tell you this, a lot of people are still talking about this fragrance today. It goes without saying, this one definitely lived up to the hype. From the house of Armani, this is Club de Nuit, Intense Man. All right, guys, and last but not least on this list, this fragrance comes from the house of Chanel, and this is Bleu de Chanel. Bleu de Chanel. This one as well, just like Dior Sauvage, broke onto the scene around that 2015, 2016 time frame, and without question has maintained its hype over the past 5 years or so. They've come out, just like with Dior Sauvage, several iterations of this fragrance. All of them are good. I don't blame you for whether it's the EDT, the EDP, or the Parfum being your favorite. But this fragrance was hyped and has definitely maintained the hype because it's just an overall great fragrance from the house of Chanel. This is Bleu de Chanel. All right, that's it, guys. That's my time. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video as I gave you 10 fragrances that were hyped and told you whether or not they were able to live up to the hype. I always appreciate your time and attention to these videos because, of course, I know you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here with me, and I sincerely appreciate that. Now, don't forget to take the time to like, comment, and subscribe, and share these videos out to folks that you think could use this information or find me entertaining, because I'm your guy, Darian, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell amazing. So until next time, guys, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.